Welcome everyone to How to Create Personas from SilverTech. Today we'll be giving an overview of persona best practices from their development to implementation. To get the most out of today's webinar, here are a few tips. The presentation will last about 30 minutes. Q&A will follow, and please post any questions you may have in the webinar chat pane, and your participation in the Personas poll, greatly appreciated. Slides, recording, and tools will be made available after the broadcast, and I want to say thank you very much for joining us today. I am your host, Ian Hughes. I'm the content strategist here at SilverTech, and I'm joined today by Samantha Maltus, SilverTech's principal strategist and personas expert. She's an in-demand speaker at digital marketing conferences, having been featured at Digital Summit Philadelphia, where she addressed the topic we're here to discuss today, personas. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Ian.
And just a quick reminder of who we are. We are SilverTech, a digital marketing agency and technology company. We've been in the digital space since 1996. We have more than 75 crew members engaged in more than 80 active projects across a variety of industries.
Our goal is to redefine how organizations understand their audience and the entire customer journey. We do so with intuitive design and a seamless sharing of data across the main marketing technology platforms, your content management system or CMS, marketing automation platform, and CRM.
So the agenda for today's webinar looks like this. First, we're going to answer the important question, why do you need personas? Next, we'll go through the 7 steps to successful persona creation. Then we'll wrap things up by sharing the 5 essential elements of every persona.
Before we dive in, let's do a quick show of hands in the poll. Is personalization a priority for your organization? Perfect. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close that poll.
And let's share those results. So it looks like we have 13% that yes, we already have personas and personalization is in place on our website. Is personalization a priority? Yes, but we haven't started yet is 75%. And 13% no, we don't have the resources to implement. So I think personas for that group in the yes, but we haven't started yet, and the no, but we don't have the resources to implement. How valuable do you think personas are going to be?
Very. It is funny that no, it's not a priority is 0% good,
Right.
because otherwise there would be no reason for you to be on this webinar. So that's a great way to go.
So why do I need personas? Well, I think from our poll, I think you get a hint of why that may be. But here are some very good reasons from our partners at Sitecore. 96% of customers would switch brands if the brand promises one thing and delivers another. 66% of millennials find it highly aggravating when personalized advertising is off target. 80% say consistent shopping experiences drive brand favorability. And that's from Sitecore Consumer Brand Loyalty Study. So as our Chief Digital Officer, Jeff McPherson, likes to assert, it's no longer B2C or B2B, it should be H2H or human-to-human marketing.
For our 2018 State of Digital Marketing Report, we surveyed 150 marketing leaders to find out their priorities and what they see as marketing challenges in 2018. So, like a lot of you on the line today, we found that marketing teams are prioritizing personalization and one-to-one messaging. They are also prioritizing mobile optimization and social media effectiveness at a higher rate than they did last year, but we face the new arrival of content channels such as virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, and the emergence of new customer experience touchpoints powered by artificial intelligence or AI. A strong digital marketing and technology foundation that delivers a full 360-degree view of the customer journey is more important today than it ever was, and an essential element of that foundation is really personas.
The respondents to our State of Digital Marketing survey overwhelmingly voiced the value of using personas. For example, those that rated their performance as effective, their website performance, were 1.8 times more likely to utilize personas. And you can see here that 53% currently have personas in place, with another 17% planning to implement in 2018. Interestingly, of our respondents who did not rate their website performance as effective, 47% indicate that the personas are a priority for 2018. I think this emphasis on adopting personas indicates that this group understands how important personas are to their website presence.
We also asked our respondents to rate the effectiveness of their email marketing towards meeting their business goals. Those that rated their performance as effective were 1.5 times more likely to utilize personas. Again, of the group that did not rate their performance as effective, a large percentage, 37%, are making personas a priority in 2018. The full State of Digital Marketing Report is available at silvertech.com for you to download and dive a little deeper into some of the findings if you'd like to.
The creation of well-thought-out personas will help you identify the problems you're hoping to solve for your customers. So here you can see an example of how personas are used to segment website visitors and show personalized content in the Kentico content management system. Personas can also be created and utilized in your Sitefinity or your Sitecore CMS or marketing automation platforms such as HubSpot and even your CRM such as Salesforce. For the purposes of today's presentation, our focus will be on building your personas outside of your marketing technology, but we'd be happy to connect on a one-to-one basis after the presentation if you need assistance adding your personas to HubSpot, Kentico, etc.
As Joe Pelusi, founder of Content Marketing Institute, puts it, it's incredibly difficult to monetize an audience of everybody. Trying to do so only reduces the potential impact of your content and makes it more difficult for your business to achieve its marketing goals.
So what are personas? Personas are the foundation of personalized, one-to-one communication. They're fictitious representations of your audience, who they are, what they like, and most important, what they don't like. By identifying your persona's ideal online experience, your business can create targeted content, navigate an ever-shifting digital landscape, and surpass marketing goals.
From our partners at HubSpot, personas are absolutely not a single specific user. They are a representation of the goals and behaviors of a hypothesized group of users. In many cases, they are captured in a 1 to 2 page description that include behavior patterns, goals, skills, attitudes, and a few fictional details that make the persona a realistic character.
Well said. Let's dive in now into the 7 steps to actually creating your personas. But before we get there, let's reiterate kind of what questions personas will help you answer. They're going to answer what your user is looking for online, why they're looking for it, what motivations they have to engage, what barriers they have to interaction, and what solutions or content will remove roadblocks and allow the user to engage with your organization. So where do we start looking for these answers? Step 1. Sorry.
Yeah, so step 1 is use your analytics. And before I get into this, just real quickly, it's important to note that these personas that we're talking about are digital personas. A lot of folks use personas that are marketing or media personas. And so those have the backstory, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here. But what you're going to see now is really going through the stages for digital personas and the information that should be included in those to really get to the meat of what people are looking for online. So in order to do that, the first step is use your analytics. And once again, Google Analytics proves itself to be one of the most valuable tools in the marketing toolbox. Your audience, acquisition, and behavior reports provide crucial data to inform the demographics, motivations, and frustration barrier sections of your personas.
Here we're looking at the age report found under audience, demographics, age. Sam, what insights for persona creation can you see right off the bat here?
It's really interesting. This report I like a lot. The reason being that sometimes we have an idea in our head of who we're talking to. This gives us a firm grasp in terms of who is actually coming to our website. So this is everyone who's coming to your website. It's not segmented by prospects or by current customers if that's your audience in a B2C environment. But it is telling you the age, the demographic, and what kind of affinity, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So it's always a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, here's the affinity categories, and you'll find this under audience/interests. Sam, can you tell us a bit more about what we're looking at here?
Yes. So the affinity category is interesting. Google basically trails everyone around the internet and categorizes visitors based on the types of websites that they visit. So what you're looking at here is this is actually SilverTech's affinity categories. So it's no surprise that technophile is the type of affinity category. So basically what that means is that anyone who comes to silvertech.com also goes to a lot of other technical or technology-based websites, movie lovers, TV lovers. So the reason that we look at this is it helps fill us in with a backstory in terms of what other things people really care about. It's great that they come to silvertech.com and we have our services there, but what other types of things are they really interested in? And it just gives a more rounded persona.
Mm-hmm. Under audience/geo, you can also find location. Sam, any persona-related insights here?
Yes. So with the this is a really great report too. Even if you're just within the United States, it's interesting to note what kind of cultures are coming to your website. It can make or break your brand. If you're an international brand, this is even more important. So it will help you prioritize what your personas need to be based on those cultural differences and make sure that we're really speaking to them, not just in the language, but in the types of communication that different cultures have come to expect.
Very nice.
So the next one is include your team. One of the main purposes of creating personas is to avoid self-referential design or content creation. In other words, personas help you write a blog post that your audience would like to read and not one that you would like to read.
So in creating personas, it's critical that you avoid being self-referential right off the bat. I think the best way to do that is to talk to your teams on the front lines, ask for their input in creating your personas, but guide the conversation with an interview. Sam, how important is it to include your team?
It's really important, and it's kind of it's an easy question, right? In that sense. But the reason why is it's a good idea to have more than one person's perspective on your audiences, and especially the perspective of people who are day to day dealing with your customers. So anyone who's in customer service. So for bankers, it would be tellers, or for any type of B2B tech, it would be the people who are answering the phones. Those are the folks who know the frequently asked questions, they know what's important to your audience, and can really help you to figure out what kinds of things need to go in your persona and what kind of questions they really have to create that ideal online experience.
Here you can see some sample questions that we would ask stakeholders, those customer service reps, as we research personas. So we'd ask things like, name 3 of the most common pain points that you hear from your customers, name 3 of the most common positive comments that you hear from your customers. So you can access this slide deck in the handouts portion of the webinar if you'd like to take a closer look at the rest of these questions.
So step 3 is social media research. At this point, your company has been using social media for several years, and it is possible to go back through your historic data to uncover what questions your customers asked, what content they engaged with most, and what common interests that you do share. Like what other like-minded accounts do they follow or repost. Even if you're not a B2C company, career or job role will likely be a key piece of your demographics element, so you can utilize this. And for that reason, LinkedIn is one of your most valuable resources for persona creation.
Right. I often use LinkedIn to create personas. Say if I'm looking for a chief marketing officer, I know my persona holds that position. To gain insight into what their values and behaviors are, look up job postings for that position. In the listing, companies will tell you exactly the qualities they're looking for and the pain points that people in that position face. Facebook, of course, also provides a wealth of information for you to use as you create your personas. So on the screen here, you can see excerpts from How to Use Facebook Audience Insights to Unlock Buyer Personas. This is by our partners at Salesforce. I've included the full infographic for you to download at your convenience in the handout section. But in short, it tells you can upload a text or CSV file from your CRM up to Facebook Ads Manager and use the tools to create a custom audience. Then Facebook will process your list for you and return a custom audience that you can analyze. You'll be able to look at a wealth of insights depending on availability, such as relationship status, education level, frequency of activities, and even household income. So for those of you who have already created personas, if you haven't done this is a very useful exercise to really verify the accuracy of the personas versus your custom audience of real customers. Mm-hmm. The 4th step in creating successful personas is customer interviews. You might assume that if you're creating 3 to 5 personas, you should interview 3 to 5 customers that you believe fit those personas. Sam, how many customers should you or would you interview? And what are some of the tools you would use to do so?
It's a great question. And it is actually a fairly widespread assumption as well, that if you have 3 to 5 personas, you would do 3 to 5 customers. And ultimately, what you're trying to create here is not a persona based off of a single specific user. So the way that I actually approach this is I interview 5 people per persona. So people that would fit that persona role, and then start to pull that story together based off of those 5 people. So to do that, I use several different tools. There's video conferencing if it's not possible to meet with people in person. In-person interviews are always my favorite because you can actually see how people act and get a little bit more of a feel of who they are. But you can also use just a regular phone call will work too. Yep. So anything like that, anything where you can communicate is a good tool to use when you're doing persona interviews.
The 5th step is to compile your research. So at this point, you've looked at your analytics, you've looked at your social media, you've spoken to your team, and you've spoken to customers. So themes and characteristics should start to emerge now. You should have a solid sense of who your personas are or who they're going to be. Sam, tips for pulling everything together.
Yeah, so there's a reason there's a picture of a whiteboard here. It is my favorite way to pull personas together, and I do a lot of that by putting together all of my notes in Venn diagram format, actually, and figuring out what the similarities and differences are between my interviews and where folks are kind of following out for social media and for my different conversations with my CSRs or customer service reps. And that really gives you a good idea of, by seeing it visually, it starts to really come together. And it does actually inherently happen that themes come together. So a lot of the time I'll just be writing down themes in the Venn diagram, and that works completely well too, which will get us ready for the next step, which is pulling everything into, bring them to life. So pulling them into the actual persona itself and what needs to be there.
So yes, step 6 is bring them to life, as Sam said. This is where it all comes together. You're going to choose your photos, give your personas names, and remember, you're not recreating specific real people, but for your personas to be successful, they must exhibit real motivations and expectations. Sam, can you share your thoughts on persona naming conventions and how important is the persona name?
It is very important. And it's really interesting because there's a couple different schools of thought on this in terms of what persona names should be, whether or not they should be very real names with a first and a last name, or if they should just be a little bit silly. My personal take on it is that, so I do like alliteration because it makes them easy to remember, which is really important as you start to roll them out. But they do need to be serious names. So one of the names that we use for a student is Focused Fran.
Yeah.
So just so that it's easier to talk about them when it is an alliteration. It's easier to identify them. When you start using real names, it's like, oh wait, is this like John Doe or is this Jane Doe? It gets confusing.
Sure, yeah.
And having the name and the purpose of the persona or the embodiment of the persona, the name of it in the actual name is very helpful.
Great. So if you were going real name, you're probably going too
far,
too specific. If it's kind of goofy alliteration, then maybe you're not going to use them. Maybe it won't catch on, but somewhere in the middle is kind of that sweet spot.
You won't be taken seriously if your persona names are too goofy.
So the 7th step is introduce them to your organization. Make it a big deal. Don't just email your company. Have a special rollout at a company-wide event. Personas can be a game changer. Show everyone in your company how valuable they can be. Sam, how important is this step?
I love these how important questions. Yeah. They're sliders because they're all very, very important. The introducing to the organization is a big deal. The reason that you do that is for company buy-in, but also there may be ways that personas can be utilized that you may not even think of. Mm-hmm. Anything that is a customer-facing activity could be tied into personas in some way to make sure that it's on point. It's been interesting. I've done these at a couple different organizations with clients, and it's interesting when you actually roll out some of the personas. Some people's faces kind of go, aha, because what's in their mind in terms of who they're talking to is actually not who your clients or your customers may or may not be. And so it's interesting to go through this exercise. And that is normally a step where I do a pause and I ask for, is there anything that's missing? And 9 times out of 10, there's just like 1 or 2 people in the room that put up their hand and say, did you think about this? And it's an easy answer, but that is your last final step of buy-in. And that really works well for overall adoption.
Mm-hmm. And maybe if somebody else in the organization is not going to find a direct application for personas in their role, I think it will help them understand what you in the marketing department are doing. Understand why you're writing these blog posts, why you're creating that white paper, or why you're sending out those emails.
It's a good point.
So as Sam mentioned, everyone should know who your personas are, and they'll mean different things to different people. As HubSpot says, for marketers, they can and should dictate the emails you send, the calls to action your contacts see, and the website experience they see. For your sales team, it should influence the topics and tone of the conversations they have. And if you've got a customer service team, it's useful to them in the very same way. In the following section, 5 essential elements of every persona, we'll give you the elements that you'll need for your 1 to 2 page persona document. And we'll be showing a few examples. So those 5 essential elements of every persona are 1, demographics, 2, background, 3, motivations/influences, 4, frustrations/barriers, and the 5th is the ideal experience. Taking a look at demographics, here we see Focus Fran that Sam mentioned earlier, a digital persona for a university. You can see she has her own identity, name, age, and role, and this helps to humanize Focus Fran. Sam, one section we haven't really talked about, but we do include is the state of mind. Can you explain what should go here and how it helps you?
Yeah, so this is really the backstory that's kind of setting up, as Ian said, the state of mind for how this person is, how this person comes to your website to engage with it, right? And so state of mind is very important because it allows you to put yourself into that person's shoes. As humans, one of our best abilities is that we have the ability to empathize.
Right.
And so the state of mind helps us get into where that person is at that particular time, and it influences marketers to be able to ease those fears or help with that state of mind when we're creating content or video or any other marketing material that we're putting out. And it's a very helpful piece that normally is skipped over. So I definitely recommend including it.
Here's a look at Focus Fran's background. As you can see, we have several paragraphs detailing everything from the role her parents play in securing financial aid to the academic interests she pursued in college. Sam, how long should this section be?
There is no defined answer
No.
for that. So the backstory, what's really important about the backstory is it can be as long or as short as it needs to be, but you really need to be able to have enough backstory to fully understand where that person is coming from. So above and beyond what that background was on the last slide, this gives you a little bit more detail. So whatever kinds of questions would come up as someone is writing content or writing marketing materials for a particular persona, that should be answered here. So in this particular case, we had 6 paragraphs worth of information, 5 paragraphs worth of information. Some of these may be as short as a 1 to 2 paragraph thing. The other piece in here is the decision variables. These do vary by the types of personas that you're creating and whatever your audience, whoever your audience is. These are things that ultimately also affect how they're using the website. And so these are sliders, which makes it really easy to understand between the different personas. Some may have more confidence level when using the site, so it's easier to put that content together.
Right. The third essential element is that motivation/influences. Here you want to try to indicate how motivated the persona is to use your website. Some visitors are highly motivated and therefore more likely to spend time learning the site and finding what they need. And others may have alternate information resources, less of a desire to find a piece of information or a lower tolerance for the amount of difficulty or frustration in performing certain tasks.
Absolutely. This so the frustrations and barriers section, which is right underneath this section lists the reasons that may stop or frustrate a persona during their online experience and would ultimately deter the user from selecting your products or services.
And the fifth essential element is the ideal experience. This outlines the persona's goals, including features and content that may help them have a great experience. And another important question, how important is the ideal experience element, Sam?
The ideal online experience is where everything kind of boils down into what your website is going to be. So it includes items such as features and content and functionality that provide that next best or that positive conversation. So that is everything that we've done so far is really just getting to the point where we can identify what that ideal experience is for each persona.
And I imagine if you can strive to deliver the ideal experience for your 3 to 5 personas, you're really casting a wide net at, the digital experience for everyone who may come to your
Precisely,
to your site.
Yes.
Personas are not a static document. In order to remain relevant, you must keep them up to date. Your audience data could shift and warrant a new persona or two. We do recommend storing them digitally in a centralized area. Platforms such as HubSpot's marketing automation software or Sitecore CMS allow you to upload, as we mentioned, and store your personas and even set rules for personalization as personas come to your site. We do also recommend printing out copies for display, but most importantly, before you update your website, send a new email, or write a new blog post, speak to your personas and ask if it will resonate with them. We've just shared a few more examples of personas we've created that you can take a closer look at your convenience. I have uploaded the slide deck to the handout section. Please feel free to download that, and I will follow up with an email containing the slide deck also. Before we conclude, I'd like to briefly discuss a blog post from our partners at HubSpot. It's 11 savvy ways to use buyer personas to strengthen your marketing. Sam, I'll read back the 11 ways, and if there are any you'd like to comment on, please jump in. And there's a link to this full blog post in the presentation. And full disclosure here, I have not read these back to Sam yet. This is the first time she's seeing them, so we will get fresh persona perspective. So, number 1, you want to write blog content that reads like their favorite how-to magazine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't know how many of you actually, I mean, normally when I go to Google and I'm looking for things, it's how to do something.
Right.
So a how-to magazine type blog post makes complete sense. Thank you.
Number 2, post social updates that speak their language.
No brainer. Yes.
Number 3, hang out where your buyer persona hangs out.
That's fun. Yes. For
4,
some. Yeah. For some brands, that's fun.
4, customize your SEO strategy to target the phrasing your persona uses.
Of course. Yes.
5, use humor that your buyer persona finds funny.
Mm-hmm. That's important, especially if it's a miss. Oh my goodness. Make sure, be careful with that one, actually.
It is a tricky one.
That one is tricky. You have to have a really good handle on who your audience is to be able to find that funny, because clearly it's very apparent what can happen when you miss on that one.
Right. I think every social media fail involves some organization trying to be funny when it's falling flat.
Yes.
Number 6, create an offer that solves your persona's problems.
Yes.
7, optimize your landing pages for your buyer persona.
Mm-hmm.
8, use technology that caters to their technical level.
That is also can be a piece of that persona as well. So in the persona, those slider bars that I was talking about, you can actually gauge whether or not a certain persona is more technically savvy or less technically savvy. Important to do.
9, collaborate with partners that excite your persona.
Absolutely.
10, align your campaign timing with your persona's lifestyle.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, it does. And something that I don't think a lot of people really think about. I think you take campaign timing as an internal thing. And a lot of B2C actually might be 9 o'clock at night where your persona is actually engaging with your content. So that's something definitely, that would actually be something I would add to that persona.
Excellent. 11, mold your sales process to your persona's decision-making process.
Yes, which is actually in the next stage, which is buyer journey, which I think we have another webinar to talk about.
We will be following up today's webinar with a link to an on-demand presentation, download of our customizable personas template. If you get a chance, you can access that in the handouts. I'll also direct you to our 2018 State of Digital Marketing Report if you haven't downloaded that already. And as Sam alluded to, the next webinar in our series is how to create a customer journey map. That's next Thursday, February 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I hope you can join us. At this point, now that you've created personas, you'll join this webinar to help map your customer's journey and improve the user experience really online and off. Again, a link to register will be included in our follow-up. So on behalf of SilverTech, I'm Ian.
And I'm Sam.
Thank you so much for joining us today.